You got there you go. Well,
All right, we're now recording.
all right.
So I'll repeat that statement one more time,
Oh, go
which
ahead.
was
Go
I
ahead,
was
William.
watching
Go
a
ahead.
documentary. I was watching a documentary on the high tech industry, the goods and the bads. I forgot even what the name of the documentary was. It was on Netflix, and they said there are only two industries that use the term user. One is for their customers or for their patrons or whatever you call it. One is the drug industry users, and the other is those of us who use these technology applications. They
Is
call us users as well.
up up
So
up
it's
to our
kind of
devices.
interesting.
Yeah, it is. It feels like that
Right.
frequently. And look at you. You're you got your politically correct statement there with your puffing a cigarette. My all right. It, it's
Well, see, the beauty of this technology and me being at home is I'm at home.
right.
So, you I can smoke at my house, not smoking in the studio with you or wherever you are. I'm assuming you're at home as well.
I am at home.
So, if it's offensive,
I'm at home.
if it's offensive, I'll stop smoking. But
No, it's fantastic.
I don't mind.
It's not fantastic, but it is what it is. It just shows where you're at, and that's why I have you on my program. And let me introduce you, all right, properly, and then you can help introduce yourself.
Outstanding. Go
You
for it.
you haven't been on my show for a year and a half,
Okay.
2 years, I don't know. So I'm here with William Calhoun,
Oh yeah, easily.
and William, I know you work at the Santa Fe Library. What do you do there?
Okay, right now, I think when we were originally recording together, I was in charge of teen services.
Yeah,
Now I'm sort of working my way into becoming the person in charge of senior services or services to older adults. I'm not sure what that really means, but that's where we are now. I should make the statement. Uh, some of my views, some of my comments should not be related to the public library or to the city of San Rafael.
right.
I get to do this from my house.
Yeah,
You and I made an arrangement.
right.
I get to speak for myself, and I will comment on library issues, anything you like. But again, it does not represent the city of San Rafael, nor does it represent the San Rafael Public
Absolutely understood. And it's um, it's interesting just to talk about anything in this day and age that because there's a certain tension of sensitivity about so many different areas of where you explore, where you can get pushback or uh, you're testing the surface tension of something that you know what I mean, right?
library. I know exactly what you mean. I am beginning to discover more and more disconnection in the world that we live in. They're all of us, to some degree, have become so sensitized that we've become insensitive to actually putting forward our educations and saying, you know, I'm trying to explain to you where I am from an educational or political, I'm not trying to defend myself. If I'm evil, then I'm evil, but I'm not trying to defend who I am. Uh, but I do want to share how I think.
Mm,
And that is really difficult. I was reading a couple of days ago, I was looking at the Atlantic magazine, and there was an interview with the president of Princeton. And he had to go through a lot of questions, but the topic of conversation was, are elite institutions should elite institutions still exist? And in a nutshell, his answer was yes. He says in all of this morass of things that we are going through as people, trying to come back together, an elite institution's education gives everyone a leg up. So when we get invited to Princeton as a Negro or any other person of color, we actually are receiving the benefits of that elite institution's education. Doesn't matter good or bad. He also had to defend a professor of his who students were considering to be politically incorrect because of some of his comments. And his response was, I understand I don't agree with his comments, but I should let you know that they are well reasoned and argued. And that is why he hasn't been removed from the institution. If I could not understand what he was talking about, or it was irrational or knee jerk, that'd be one thing. Then I'd probably want to talk about that. But he says, this particular professor is not knee jerk and he's not irrational. We can disagree with whatever he has to say, and that's on us.
Education is about.
And so
So
I thought that was interesting.
and I think just by being connected to the library as your this role in life that you have chosen that seems to fit with your vision of life. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing the job. You get satisfaction from it. It's about this kind of a library sort of. How would you describe, how does a library fit in with this passage of maybe, shall we say, Western civilization or any civilization? What's the process here?
Okay, here is my understanding. See, when I was going to library school in Ann Arbor, Michigan, the basis of the graduate education was, one, we build collections. Two, we catalog those collections. And then three, we provide reference service to accessing the information in those collections. Now, there was no constraint restriction in terms of what kind of collection we build, as long as we understand what we're trying to build. We have some very specific rules, whether they be Dewey Decimal System or Library of Congress. We have very specific rules and ways of entering the data for cataloging. And then the reference piece is dependent upon each worker's knowledge of what kind of collection they build and how is it cataloged. And that's how you help people get into it. Now, a word that is often kicked around in libraries is the concept of community. And really, at the core of any library is the community, and the idea is giving them a common set of information and standards, and then allowing them to share it. So yeah, the president of Princeton he was thought-provoking, and I thought he was nuanced in his answers. Of course, since I have a sister who works for Princeton, I immediately shot her an email and said, wow, just read the interview with your president and found them to be thought-provoking and nuanced in its answers, but I wanted to know from her, does he walk the walk or talk the talk? Do you find them to be genuine? And that's really what everybody is looking for inside this morass that we now live in. In
a short answer, her answer reply to that was?
She hasn't replied yet, but I'm expecting her reply. I shot that email out early this morning. So I'm busy trying to get this other thing out of my screen.
Got it. We got sound effects there.
There we go.
All right, but the background of that talk by your Princeton leader, the leader of this university that has to foster education and you think is able to create a place where young people get to explore ideas freely, and a library that in a community maybe offers an opportunity for young people to explore ideas and to learn, you get this sense that almost that his institution, Princeton, or was threatened. And you use the term elite, and that's kind of a term that has what would you call that? A pejorative quality? What when you say elite? Is Princeton itself threatened right now because it's a quote elite? What would you?
Well, yeah, it's kind of interesting because I bristle less by I bristle less at the use of the term elite, and primarily because we understand, and it has been entrenched in us, that there is an Ivy League education, that the best and the brightest, not necessarily as it always been achieved, but the best and the brightest of Americans get to go to these institutions and get what is considered an education from some of the best and the brightest professors. So I don't bristle at the concept of elite. That was the term that was brought in by the interviewer. The president, understanding his position at Princeton being a Ivy League school and considered very good, said, well, I'm not going to even deal with the concept of elite because that's your choice. But I'm not going to deny that there is a certain amount of elitism inside the institution itself. That's what makes the conversation that he had with the interviewer so nuanced. He wasn't going to just sit there and get defensive. What he was going to do was discuss what's going on at Princeton and how that's working. And he even morphed into a discussion of an illness that he has that gives him tendinitis. And for a long period of time as president, he didn't want to reveal to staff that there would be this ringing in his ears and these excruciating headaches. But then he realized, I might as well fess up. He also discovered late in life that he was a Jew, which he never grew up with an understanding of being a Jew. But he says, now that I know, based on the genealogy, that I'm Jewish, I feel that's brought more of a nuance for me to the table when I discuss Princeton, So the world we live in is really broad. It just requires way more thinking, and probably always has required this much thinking than most of us are willing to accept.
Yeah, I think we can only pray for the continuance of university. I'm not sure that's the right word, but of an education system that isn't throttled into believing that there is only one way to perceive or to think about things, that this person that he was defending for having a right or at least a well thought argument, that maybe that he represents, I don't know what his argument was. It might have been something completely appalling to me, or maybe not. But I feel like there is, in the world, as you described my own process of fumbling through newspapers, there's so much of the world that I can't just boggles my mind, that I feel like there's probably only 1% of the population possibly who might agree with me. But I wish I could turn the switch on and believe that everybody could be unafraid about exploring ideas and exploring, not shutting somebody down for having a different perspective.
Exactly, because the concept of an idea is not to defend yourself against it. A good friend of mine there in San Rafael, uh, who I sit and chat with on a regular basis, uh, we were talking about Thomas Sowell at Stanford. And Thomas Sowell started his career as an economist, as a communist, and then changed and became radically conservative and very much a capitalist because he's Friedman-esque. And so when he was asked the question, what made you change your mind? He said, the facts. It was that simple for him. When he started balancing the information, fact-driven, he decided communism wasn't the way for him, nor did it make as much sense. And so, offensive, maybe people do find Thomas Sowell offensive, but that's not his fault. He's still, and like I said, well-nuanced arguments. If you can define for people exactly how you're thinking, then that's pretty much where everything should be, not, so yeah, we should fumble around. It's not simple. This is not a simple world that we're living in.
No, it's not.
No.
And there's a shift or I think a kind of a drive that I see in media. Perhaps it expressed this vision of of progress somehow attempting to eliminate the point of view that appears to be against progress as somebody defines it. Like, I'm not sure if I don't know why I can't be completely eloquent as I wish. We're just stuck
you don't have to be.
Go ahead.
I'm listening. I said you don't have to be eloquent, but because that's the purpose of dialogue. If I don't understand you, I should be able to ask the questions that need to be clarified for me so that I have a clearer understanding, so that we are better at trying to communicate with one another. That's just the way it is. Having been in the library world for so long and having seen so many changes, from the card catalog, that very physical thing, to all of this new high-tech introduction, including this Zoom meeting that we're at, and downloadable books and audiobooks and the whole audio-visual world, and then trying to grapple through the distinction between what is a graphic novel and what is a comic, and can graphic novels be nonfiction? These are all things that challenge us, and I think when we stop the challenge, then we might as well just go ahead and cloister ourselves somewhere where there is no challenge, or arrange the whole book series by color. Let's call them blue and red, and those bindings that come out in green get put over with the green binding. But that's not the way it works.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
consistently we must challenge.
And the more like that professor who felt himself threatened, apparently, to be able to even express himself or teach himself in Princeton, I think anybody who feels marginalized or shoved or like that I can't express what I'm saying because I think I have to challenge myself, despite my friend's advice to saying, Jai, just don't talk about it, just, I feel like sometimes there's
right.
inner optimism that if you talk about it fully, you could like blow some of this fear that wants to stop free communication, that's afraid of a different voice, that feels like things have to be, only this way or else you're bad,
Right. Uh, even in the challenge, when we hear a nuanced argument for why somebody feels one way or the other, and we still can walk away from the table and say bullshit. Excuse my language, maybe that's not the correct phrase. We can still say, I don't believe it.
Right. Right. Or just say, really?
Nothing holds you.
Yeah.
Exactly. But you can't really just go around just in a knee-jerk manner because their ideas, their ideology is so far away from yours that it's nonsense. That's harder for us to do now. And I think there was a time, perhaps, when it may have been easier, when the world was more limited, for us to say to one another that this person's ideology is nonsense and this person's ideology is the correct approach. But there's, the genie's out of the bottle. There's way too much information now for us to be able to simply sit back and say, that makes no sense.
You brought up Thomas Sowell. He had a book about the competing visions. I forget the title of it, but the world was divided between people with different visions of the way life was. And I don't know if do you know about that book? Did you?
I'm not so sure if I know that title. I may very well, because I have looked at a bunch of his stuff. I think he did one on rednecks and
Right.
and Negroes, and I forget even the title. But that particular title, off top of my head, does not come to mind right away.
What's your take on the zeitgeist? We brought that word up, William. That's an interesting word. I don't know if young people even know what a zeitgeist is, or even I. You want to give me an intro to the word of what zeitgeist means?
That's a tough one, because, while we were talking, we looked up the term elitist because we had introduced it, right? The term elitist is defined as someone who has learned enough to discern. Uh-oh, my battery is running low. Who has learned enough to discern. Okay, but he says elitist is someone who has learned enough to discern quality of thought, of artistic merit, of argument, or theory. That's what an elitist is. Now, zeitgeist.
Huh?
We use that term to say this is the common knowledge, common world we live in. That's a zeitgeist, saying this is the boundaries and this is how we reflect it all. It's tough, you're right. People probably don't know zeitgeist. When I use the term Negro, I know it's anachronistic, but for me, it better represents my racial, ethnic, and cultural identity. For me, it does, because it gives me a huge gone. Let me see if I can. Somewhere along the line, we knocked out the power.
Oh, well, zeitgeist. Yeah, and I guess I'll be able to cut this point, jump back in. All right, so we had a momentary glitch, and we're into wrap up mode now, William. Okay,
Yeah,
so we're just
I
wrapping
think
it up.
wrap up mode.
All right, what I think that we've been trying to like poke around with in this notion, talking from Princeton to the ideas of libraries and everything, to me is like it's the trying to establish the place of the freedom of expression and knowing that you are a very you hold your own unique opinions that sometimes are differ from many in your world, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah,
I do, and but that's okay. I mean, I'm becoming more and more comfortable with it
yeah,
as I get older because I now have a larger body of information, data, things to connect all of my thinking to. You
right.
know, I just have a larger body of work to work with.
Mhm.
It, you know, and it's just that probably is you see those old guys sitting on the corner or in a club or having drinks together and you just hear them talking about stuff. They really are speaking from a larger body of just personal information, things they have seen just occurring in life. The wife says that's called wisdom. I don't know, but it can be. It can be wisdom. I mean, just like I said, you know, the joy of conversations with you is that we can ramble around and get to this point of discussing disconnectedness, a lack of a common body of information that is separating community. It's imploding on itself. I mean, that was the nature of our whole rambling piece here. Was we were discussing yesterday you felt disheveled, now you're feeling like you're back in yourself. Everybody should be having some kind of feeling like that, I think. You know, I don't know anybody who has managed to get through this period of COVID not feeling that way, not feeling a sense of stress. Um, that's just my opinion.
Yeah. No, of course you're absolutely right there. And I am running out of time, and having this little conversation with you makes me want to have more conversation with you, William. And I hope we don't let another big year go by. I'm going to keep talking to you and try to pull you back in again
Good, good,
relatively soon because we barely
good.
scratched
Because
the surface.
right, that was the beauty of being in the studio. In the studio, we could go for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
Here with this technology not having the bigger, but yeah, I definitely want to stay in contact. Because sometimes expressing what you're thinking gives you more clarity of thought.
And
It just helps you think better.
and it actually seems to be a form of encouragement. It's just positive. It's just good. All
That
right.
is the thing.
All
We'll
right.
be talking about,
To all the
and let's just
everybody in
plan
the
to get back together.
That's right. We're okay. All right.
What
Later.
did Adam Clayton Powell Jr. say? Keep the faith, baby.
Keep the faith.
All right. Talk to you
All right.
later, guy.
All right, William.
Thank you.
Awesome. Take care.
Peace out.
Thanks so much.